Oh my gosh. Hey. Hey y'all. Hey. Hey y'all. Hey. How's it going? Hey. I just wanted to start talking about something that's important to me. The diaspora. The diaspora wars. The diaspora wars is happening, honey. And it's time for me to talk about it. Right? Roll intro. Come along. Oh, come along with me. Smoke some weed and talk some shit. I don't really like to smoke though. I hate some of these hoes. I sure do. Come along with me. Talk some shit and smoke some weed. I don't really like to smoke though. Anyway, that's my intro, bitch. Alright, so it's recording. Okay, let's get ready.
Africans hate their own people. Like, just because we live in a different country doesn't make us any different than y'all. I mean, sure, our culture is different, but genetically, we're literally the same. And you want to know what's crazy? African people copy American culture, and Black people want more of their culture. Like, really? We're literally going in separate directions, and that's what's dividing us. This stupid ignorance on both sides needs to stop. Like, it's honestly so dumb. I can't even believe I'm ranting about it on TikTok right now. Just love everyone. Understand both sides. It's that easy. And honestly, this is something I can rant about all day. If you guys are interested, follow me and let me know you want more.
Child, let's look at the comments. African people copy American culture. It's literally the opposite. You lot do afro braids, wear waist beads, and dashikis. You're the ones copying us. I ain't never seen no nigga copy no African for real like that, you know? Maybe like Erykah Badu, you know, a little bit of like, like we're in our like, you know, new age spiritual era, you know, the waist beads and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, that's like maybe a couple of light skins, you know, a couple of light skins in a certain area. That's not really all Black people, right? But the comments, they're not affirming what she's saying, you know, just stop saying, yeah, let's see. Just stop saying Africans copy African American culture more than anything. It's becoming lame at this point. How many Africans do you know? Ooh. Confused and ignorant, don't have an identity, yet have a superiority complex. You're not the face of Black people. You're not even Black. You're all mixed like Tyler. Ooh. One question, what's your home language? Ooh. Please, we don't hate anyone. I don't like it when Africans lie, because a good amount of you online have said that you do not like Black Americans. So I don't understand why you guys are pretending like the reason that Black Americans don't like our asses is because we just have some weird vendetta against you. No, it's because a lot of you bitches had an issue with us. Now, a good amount of Africans didn't, because you know, I understand what some Africans are saying. You know, Africa is a very big continent. It's very, very big, right? So it's weird to say all Africans, but at the end of the day, a good amount don't like Americans, period, especially Black Americans. So, you know, they're kind of proving her point in the comments. I noticed a lot of Africans, like really any other group though, they get upset when, you know, you start talking about culture. They really don't like Black Americans saying that they have culture. They don't like that shit, right? Black Americans saying that they have culture, Black Americans owning the fact that they have culture. It's just, it can't be done because we don't have a lineage, because we got taken away. And so apparently we don't have any culture. So we need to shut the fuck up talking about the ins and outs of culture, right? Yeah, that's interesting.
I've had people ask me, like, what is it like to be a Black American woman dating an African man? And I would like to know my husband's experience with dating a Black American girl. He's from Cameroon, which is in Central Africa. We met here. But what's your experience, babe? What's the vibes? What's the vibes like? Yes. What's your experience?
I think because it's not my first American woman I date, like you were second one. like all the perspectives I have about like black American girl, like when I came in this country.
Babe, but why you have to say I'm the second woman that you dated as
babe,
American girl?
Babe, listen, I have to explain something because it's gonna generalize.
Okay.
Like all the perspectives I had, like people around, like my people from Africa were telling me about black women, how they're crazy, how they're doing all the shit of thing. But says like I never have that experience, and I don't know. Black American guys lost a lot. Like that is my best. I never did great experience I have with American girl. I never had that with, because I did girl from my country. I did Indian girl too. But like the way where I feel very comfy, it was when I did black American girl. The first for my wife. And when I met my wife, I decided like this one, I'm not gonna leave this girl go no anywhere. Even if she do me anything, I'm just gonna be there. But she never do me nothing, you know. I think like that's it.
Aw, I like that. Do you feel like it was hard for us, like, because low-key in the beginning, it was a language barrier?
Yeah, we were using like Google Translator.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a little difficult. But you know, love don't have language.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they both got us.
Like,
they both got us.
You can go anywhere in the world, like find someone you were very connected with and just have connection with that person, and you know that.
How you so romantic on this video? You don't ever, well, yeah.
Oh, now see, people always want to prey on your downfall. Why did someone in the comments say, better make sure he don't got a wife back in the motherland? Girl, that's her man from Africa. Them African men, they fine as hell, so love that for her. See, it's not all bad. It's not all bad.
In your bum ass place. Oh, you the queen of this here.
I don't know which side she's on. Like, is she on the African side? Or is she, okay, like we are from Africa, what's the Wahala? Okay, so I guess she's on the African side. She's very pretty. She's very pretty. The hair looks really good, you know. The makeup's giving, the face, the beat is beating, right? She looks great. I just don't know what this means, and so we're going to move on. Yeah.
As an African living in the United States, I used to share the same sentiment that Africans share about African Americans, because I had a hard time when I first moved here. People used to always tell me, you're not black enough, you're an Oreo, you're secretly white on the inside, as if I wasn't literally from Africa. But I now understand after living here for 8 years that black in the United States is a very specific criteria, and anything outside of that just doesn't fit. But I want to help African Americans understand that Africans coming to the United States are immigrants, first and foremost. Then they are Nigerian or Senegalese or whatever country they're from. And then at some point, they are black. But Africans don't put black high up on their identity well, as much as African Americans do. And that is for legitimate reasons on both ends. And so when an African is coming to the United States, they're thinking to themselves, okay, I'm an immigrant here. I have to do my best for myself and my family back home. The sacrifices that took for me to get here were no light work, okay? So I need to really align myself with what's going to make me successful in this country. And because it's the United States, it's the dominant culture, which is white American culture. And so Africans are going to instinctively ally themselves with the culture that's going to give them the most success. I mean, African Americans even admit that they have to code switch to be successful here, because that's what brings success. And so Africans are like, all right, we'll do that. And it also doesn't help that for a long time, Africans are fed a very negative view of Black American culture.
I don't want to, because code switching is different. Like, when I'm code switching, that doesn't mean that I'm fully becoming like a coon, that I'm fully becoming anti-black. That's not what that's getting. And I don't think that's what she's saying, but I feel like I don't want that to be conflated with being a coon. Code switching is somehow equivalent to me being somebody who's outwardly anti-black, being somebody who's around white people who say racist ass shit and just being like, hey, I mean, I agree with you, just so I can get a raise at the company. Like, I don't think that's the same thing. Me changing the way that I, sound, me presenting in a certain way, me being formal. Everybody to some extent, depending on the particular type of job, code switches. Like, that's just kind of a thing. But at the end of the day, I just don't want that particular type of idea to be like, okay, well, it's fine for an African to come to America and then sit there and just say a bunch of racist ass shit and talk, shitty about black people in America because, well, we're doing the same thing as you're doing. We're trying to navigate the workspace and we're trying to sit there and get a leg up. It's like, you can get a leg up without having to put down people who look like you, like black Americans, and I feel like even Africans wouldn't really respect that. I just kind of think it's disappointing. Like, why would you do that, right? But I'm loving the stuff that she's saying, because this is something that I've been trying to articulate in a lot of my videos, my past videos that I have been putting out on my channel. Americans, this is very good that somebody who is African is talking about this very specific thing, and this is at the root of why the diaspora war keeps happening, because there is this lack of understanding about what it means to be a black American and what does that mean culturally speaking. So I'm loving what she's saying so far.
That's its own propaganda. But because Africans are so conservative and they're coming to a country where Black Americans have been labeled as the antithesis to this conservative traditional family values, they have, if anything, more in common with like Southern Baptist white racist people. But that aside, going back to identity markers, Black Americans put Black first and foremost, and then everything else goes below it. And so they're thinking when another Black people come to our country, they're going to want to integrate with us, the other Black people, because Black comes first. And they get quickly disappointed in realizing that for Africans, Black and the identity and that coming is not first. Their immigrant identity comes first, and then their country. And if anything, for us as Africans to feel like that's my brother, that's my brethren, or whatever, you have to come from the same tribe as us, because we have so many Black people around, we don't automatically pre-select for Black. But Black Americans don't have so many Black people around, have had to defend and protect their culture amidst a dominant white culture. And so they are already pre-select and are overprotective for Black. And so that's why I think at the core of it, there's like a deep misunderstanding because of not realizing that we put where we put our identity markers and what we put first and what we prioritize are so different culturally because of our differences in trauma, realistically. And so it does make sense that Black Americans will be like, oh, my people, my brethrens come here, and Africans coming to the United States are like, I'm just trying to make it here. Like, it's a lot of work to immigrate to the United States. And so y'all can stay over there, and I can see why it's hurtful, and I can see why it's taken personally, and I can see the deep misunderstanding and the betrayal that African Americans feel. But it's unfortunate, and that's just a reality. But if we can talk about it from this perspective, I think we can get to a better understanding. But I also believe that Africans that spend enough time in the United States get to this compassion and understanding of the Black American community, because it is a very unique and specific set of circumstances for a culture to grow and to develop.
Oh my goodness. She ate that. Follow. Let's look at some of the comments. I'm African American, and this was very insightful. It helped me to understand the cultural split or separation between our two groups. I'm from Jamaica, and I can relate to what you are saying. I didn't pay attention to my race as much until I came to the United States. It's crazy how everyone wants to take the time to understand them, but no one wants to understand us. Finally, wait, what does that mean? Which side is she on? See, this is what I hate about social media, because when she said that, I was kind of confused, like, okay, is she talking about like the Africans not wanting to take the time to understand Black Americans and want to take the time to understand white Americans, or Black Americans? Like, what is she talking about? I'm confused. Don't go to a country if you don't take the time to understand the people. I don't know. Finally, someone who can explain this whole misunderstanding. And I've said this before, is that that's the reason why so many Black Americans now are saying that you guys aren't Black. They're not saying that you guys are not physically Black, because Black Americans for the longest time have known Africans to be black. There hasn't been any trivialization of them being black people. I'm black, you're black. That's not something that is difficult to understand. The biggest issue that is at the root of the diaspora war is the fact that black in America is different from black outside of America. And when you identify your culture by blackness, when you identify the things you went through blackness, when you identify the good and the bad, culturally speaking, and the way that you cultivated your culture through the identification known as black, and that's something that came from social construct of race itself, from the Europeans that came here and decided to use it as a white supremacy and all of this bullshit with social hierarchy and all that stupid fucking bullshit that happened throughout history. When that has happened, you have a different viewpoint of race relations. You have a very different viewpoint, culturally speaking, of what it means to be black. And so I know what she said was very important to the conversation, because that's really the biggest issue. And so a lot of black Americans are delineating, a lot of them are leaving the African American identity, and they're saying, I know I'm just black American, because they are tired of wanting to align themselves with people who they say we're black, they say they're cool with you, they say, okay, every time somebody who is African comes to America and they decide to be in entertainment, be in a lot of different roles in movies, it's not something that's necessarily detrimental, even though a lot of black Americans have talked about it more and more over the years of why are so many British black people coming to take the jobs of African Americans and black Americans? Why are so many actors having, UK accents? What's going on? But for the longest time, it wasn't something that was detrimental. It was something that was positive for the overall representation of black people. Even Eartha Kitt was not somebody who was a black American. Even Sidney Poitier was somebody who wasn't technically black American. But they were very pivotal in the representation of what it meant to be black and successful in black media, in black pop culture. And so they would be technically a part of black American culture, even though they wouldn't necessarily maybe identify fully with being black American. That's just something that happens when you come to a country and you're a part of a minority. You begin to represent that minority just off of the basis of the color of your skin. And also, if you're being positive, you're doing something that's great, you're doing something and you're speaking out for all black people in that country, of course, black people are going to put you on a high pedestal. Of course, black people are going to want to rally behind you. And yes, there'll be other people around you that say, okay, I don't like this, I don't like that. But there's going to automatically be black excellence. Hashtag black people winning. Hashtag black girl magic. When Lupita won that award for 12 Years a Slave, I remember at that time, a lot of black people weren't talking about the intricacies of her being African. They were talking about how it was amazing that we have a black woman who's winning an award, who gave representation, who really did what she had to do. And still to this day, even with all the issues happening in the diaspora war, a lot of black people still fuck with Lupita. At least I do. I'm a black American who fucks with Lupita. I love her down, and she's been in a lot of other different films. She's been in a lot of Jordan. She's been in that Jordan Peele film, and Jordan Peele is a black director that has been doing a lot of great things when it comes to black cinema. I mean, yeah, this is just the big issue. When I talked about it in my other videos with Olay and Friends and This Bohemian Girl, and some of the other people that I've reacted to, I've said that they don't understand what it means to be black culturally in this country. They don't understand why this country is so obsessed with race. And when you are a group of people who you are constantly, historically speaking, around this idea of navigating around whiteness, however you deal with that, whether you are somebody who says it's not a big deal, you become like a conservative grifter, or whether you're somebody who's a hotep and you're very pro-black and you say, I can't stand white people, or you're somewhat in the middle, wherever you go to, whatever extreme or middle ground you're at with your ideology, there's no denying the history of what it means to be a black person in a country that is predominantly white, and that is something that is very specific to that reality for Black Americans that causes culture to be seen differently than people who had the ability to stay in their own homelands, the ability to stay at the root of their culture, the root of their heritage. They have a very different viewpoint of race. And that's just, that misunderstanding, it causes a lot of different types of issues. Because I do think that it does take more African people like this woman to really get to the nitty gritty of why there's such a disconnect and why Black Americans feel the way they feel when it comes to the diaspora conversation. And this was very good, right? Africans, I know, we see each other as brothers and sisters. You know, also Caribbean people also think this way. I learned that I was Black when I came to America. Back home, I never thought about race define me. Great man. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. And that's with the problem with so many other different types of African people, like especially this Bohemian girl. I can't look at any more of her videos. Because she will go on and on and on, and you could tell that she doesn't really know why we act the way we act. She has a very condescending way that she looks down on Black people while also trying to pretend like she actually gives a fuck about the community. There is no time for sentiments when no one has family to feed back home. Yeah. Which, okay, I can relate to this well. My West Indian mother is an immigrant first, and then when I visited Ghana, I was thrilled because I didn't have to be Black when I was there. My identity was American. Yeah. The more time you spend there, the Blacker you are. Well said. I'm so Black now. It took 35 years. I came as a British Nigerian. Yep. Because that's just how people see you. It's just how, and I don't believe that it's an erasure. Calling you Black is an erasure of that other aspect of your culture, but maybe they feel like it is, because it's just like, why are you calling me Black? Why are you doing that, right? Because you're in a different country. You're in America, sweetheart. You're in America. Girl, where the niggas at? 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 Okay. She got some Nigerian in her. She got some Congo in her. I'm actually low-key mad that I was really waiting for them to give examples, but they said, no, we need to unite. We do! We need to unite as Black people in America, as Black people in Africa. Did you know there's Black Australian people? I know, I'm so ignorant. So, the one in black is obviously African. And the one in red is most definitely American.
Africans come here looking to us to be skin folk. They already got a deal, with the discrimination of being an immigrant. And then they look to Black people for comfort, Black Americans for comfort, and they don't get none. That is what you need to be focused on before you as a Black person try to open your mouth against other groups of people of color. It's already disheartening to receive discrimination from everybody else who is not Black. But when you look to your own people who are so far removed from their culture and you look to them for comfort and they treat you like dirt too, it's a different type of disheartening. Africans don't have to come here and help us advance our medicine, advance our skills. Goes back to the Gorilla Glue lady. Okay, an African doctor was the one who saved her hair. He used simple olive oil.
Ooh, I didn't know that. Now this is Pan-African lifestyle. I didn't know that. Okay.
Some other natural ingredients to remove that glue from her hair. So the least that we can do when Africans come here is be way more kind and inviting to them instead of being so discriminatory.
I ain't gonna lie. When I hear this, I'm kind of like, but I have to give the tea. When I was working at a hospital down the street, a couple of blocks down, because I live like in, I guess you would call it the health district. That's what I'm gonna start calling it. They might as well call it the health district here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, because most of my family is nurses. Everybody around here, a good amount of people you see in different parts of, Hattiesburg, Midtown, they be wearing scrubs and stuff because there's a lot of different hospitals around the area. There's a lot of different programs for people who want to be in the health field. So there was one time I was working at the hospital as a janitor, like as a floor tech is what they call it, right? And I remember I was working with other people. There was somebody from the Caribbean. And I just remember, she worked there for a while and she was very sweet. I could tell that she understood English, but kind of didn't. But, it really didn't matter because she knew enough. And honestly, I always tell people from other countries, they always like stress about English. Like, oh my gosh, I'd be like, girl, there's people who are English, who are American, who don't know English. Let's keep it a buck. There's people here who know English and don't know English. Like, let's like, you're good. You're fine. And, I remember talking to her, we had a little bit of moments. It was cool. It was fun, right? But I remember one time that I was with her, like she was going from one place to the other, and hospitals is like a bunch of halls and stuff. And one of the supervisors came, well, two of the supervisors came, right? And they so fake. Fuck those hoes. But I remember, she was saying something, she has a Caribbean accent. I can't do it, but she kind of said something and they were kind of like mocking, but also kind of playing with her. Maybe it was, I'm thinking, okay, she's been here a long time. Maybe it's just them having fun. But I didn't like the way that they kind of mocked her accent. And she was kind of just sitting there kind of laughing along with it. But it was kind of like they were saying certain stuff. And I was like, it's giving Mean Girl. It's giving Mean Girl. But I didn't want to say nothing because it ain't like they was like cussing her out or anything like that. It was very much nice, nasty, co-worker, trying to talk shit, but not really type of bullshit. I have to agree with that I have noticed that there are some hostilities coming from Black Americans towards Africans. I have noticed that. It goes both ways. But I'm not going to lie and say that I like to admit that. I don't like to admit that. Because in my head as a Black American, it was all the Africans' fault. I'm just keeping it above. I'm being real with you. I'm being honest with you. I'm not about to sit here and give you lies and tell lies. It was all the Africans' fault. That's my Black American mind. But I'm going to try to be nuanced. I'm going to attempt to be nice about it because just like a bunch of Africans are tribalistic and they are very prideful of their culture and who they are, a lot of Black Americans are just the same. And so it becomes this thing where you have to acknowledge the fact that there are people in the Black American community who have probably talked shit and been very horrible towards Africans, and vice versa. So, two can play at this game and we both been playing, but it's time to put the controller down and go back outside and touch grass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Black and African American are not necessarily always the same thing, and everyone needs to know about this, so keep watching. I think oftentimes in an effort to sound politically correct, non-Black people will refer to all people racialized as Black as African American. But baby girl, I hate to break it to you, not all Black people are African American. African American refers specifically to African descendant peoples who reside in or have some kind of connection to the United States. Black, on the other hand, can be defined in so many capacious ways. And bear with me because I am getting my PhD in Black studies, so I can get really philosophical about this. But simply put, most often Black is used to define the optics of how one presents. So if one is racialized as Black in the world, then one is Black. I would also argue that there's a kind of political valence to Black. That to be Black is also to recognize that anti-Blackness is the thing that sutures the world, and so we kind of need a global consciousness to move towards the project of liberation. So when you're out here calling all people racialized as Black African American, what that shows me is that you really know nothing about African diasporic histories. I could change that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I've noticed, let's talk about like Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris is Indian, but she's also technically African American, because I was like, let me look it up, y'all. Race is Kamala, because see, now I'm paranoid. Harris father, right? Donald J. Conner, he is Jamaican American. See, that's not. Ugh, that's not African American though. But they've been saying in the news. That Kamala Harris' father is African American, and they've been saying that the mother is Indian. He's black, right? He is a black man. Okay, how Kamala Harris' immigrant parents found a home in each other in a black study group. Oh, black study group, love. I love that. Oh my gosh, the New York Times, bitch, they always want you to pay for some shit. I don't care if it's like 2 pennies. I'm getting my news for free. Okay? You watch your mouth. So, yeah, Kamala Harris' father is Jamaican American, and they call him African American. And I've seen with what's going on, I've seen a lot of different things that have been happening in the movement of the FBA movement, and a lot of black people now saying Black American instead of African American, because again, I've said this before, African American was something that came in the 1980s from Jesse Jackson, and he decided that he was going to make African American. We used to say Black American back in the day, which I was so shocked about, because I thought that we always said African American, but no, that was something that came back later. And now we're going back to Black American, right? Yeah, there is this thing that's been said by when we're having these different types of debates and discussions and these needless, tit for tats about the authentication of African identity and Black identity and all of this stuff involving culture, where I've seen some Africans say that no, technically, if Kamala Harris' father is African American, that's the actual African American. If you're Nigerian American, you're actually African American. If you're first generation, second generation, if you're the child of an immigrant and you grew up in America, but you also visited your home, then you technically are an African American. That's the true African American. And then Black Americans are saying the ones that do not know their lineage, or the ones that have to go take an ancestry test to find out what they consist of, they don't really have that connection, they will be considered Black American. So that's kind of the shift that I'm noticing. I don't know how some people feel about it. To me, I'm kind of like, I guess, but it's kind of confusing. We're changing language.
So what's your ethnicity? I'm African American. No, you're Black American. But my ancestors came from Africa. No, he's a foundational Black American. What's the difference? No, he's an American descendant of slavery. Well, that's a mouthful, but I don't see how that... Why can't he just be Black? That's my race, but my ethnicity, like I said, is Solon, Hebrew Israelite. Technically indigenous, we were here first. Damn, how many ethnicities do y'all have? So it's...
Oh my gosh, I'm mad. I'm mad because he's low-key... I'm mad because he low-key is right. I get so mad. Sit there and follow. When some Africans notice that, I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, I can't even get mad for real, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's kind of silly. Because, I worked with somebody here, because, I never leave my hometown. I don't have a life. It was a diner literally down the block. We're noticing a pattern. And, I still see him around like on Grindr and shit. I worked with him. He's a very eccentric type, but we kind of butt heads, but we were cool with each other because we were both like the work gays, right? We were both the work girlies, right? So, he was my supervisor, but we were also killing each other. We were both, kikiing with each other, and, he was very eccentric. And he basically said that we are the Native Americans. And I said, okay. Now... Oh my gosh. I have a dream catcher. Oh my gosh, it's making me laugh because so now I'm not laughing at the dream catcher. I Native Americans ate with this one. They ate with this one. But I don't know. I don't want to just put it nowhere. I'm gonna lay it down. I gotta be respectful. I remember him literally having a full-blown conversation and getting angry with me, saying, no, we were Native Americans. We are the original people. I said, well, I don't know. Because at that point, I was still on my African American thing, right? And I still do think that Black Americans do have some connection to Africa. But I'm just like, at that point, I was just full blown African American. And so I was just like, okay, so what are we doing here? We are the real Native people. And he showed me a photo that was in a museum of, white people that was on slave ships, right? And so he said, see, that we weren't the ones. And I'm like, okay, so it was white people also on the slave ships. But you could sit there and try to say what Candace Owens was saying, where she was like, what a lot of other Black conservatives say, where they're just like, well, you weren't the only enslaved people. Irish, Italian, poor white people, you weren't the only ones. So, in a way to dilute the severity of the situation, in order to dilute the visceral nature of what took place in that time, right? And I'm just like, I'm looking at him, and he's like, his eyes are wide open. He's like, he kind of does this after every sentence. I love him. He's sweet when he wants to be. He really is. But he was like, we are the Native people. Yeah. We are the Native. And he's like really secure in that belief. Like, this is what he believes. Like, there's no shaking him. Then it went to, we are actually Egyptian people. Now, there is a lot of different types of history of Black people or people who look Black being Egyptian, right? Because there even is this idea that Egyptians now are kind of just like, okay, yeah, but there's a whole different culture, and it wasn't Black people who were Egyptian. I'm like, no, there were people who looked Black who were most definitely Egyptian. Like, we're not going to play games and trivialize that, right? Because when you see a lot of Black people in too many different types of places in different parts of the world, it becomes too much. It kind of reminds me of when I found out that it wasn't a lot, but there were some Black people who were also Jews, right? There were Black people who were also involved within the Holocaust, right? And that kind of just blew over people's head. Like, nobody looked at that. I was like, when did that happen? It's certain stuff that kind of just falls between the cracks because it's not relevant enough, or it doesn't have enough punch to it. Yeah, I don't know why we don't just stick to Black American. Some say I just say AA or African American, but Soul Non is cute. I like it. I like Soul Solon. I like that too, Solon. So subscribe to Professor Black Truth, Tariq Nasheed, TBA. Yeah, okay. I like Afro-American. Afro-American's cute. Okay, I just say Solon or African American. I have never understood people's beef with the term African American. It makes perfect sense, LOL. Well, African American is changing. I said this before. People don't want to be African American anymore because there's this diaspora war situation, and a lot of people have a lot of resentment towards Africans. There is some xenophobia that's happening, and like the lady said earlier, there's a lot of not an understanding of the culture in America. I noticed a lot of people have been talking about American culture. I think I saw on Twitter where somebody was like, America is not culturally diverse. And I was like, that doesn't make sense when there's a whole history of people who come from various different parts of the world who decided to build a life here, who created various different types of pockets of culture in America. One city alone has a whole multitude of different types of cultures. And I think what also a lot of Black Americans feel some type of ways because when Africans say your culture is not Black American, right? Or even if they say you are African American, they acknowledge that there's so much of that American identity with you. And I believe so many other people believe, when someone says their American culture, I do believe they think, blue eyes, white skin, blonde hair, country, big food, gas stations, highways. Like, they think the stereotypical idea of American culture. They're not thinking about ethnic people. When you're thinking at the forefront of American culture, I truly doubt that people are putting in a melting pot of various different cultures, skin tones, various different people from various different backgrounds. I just doubt that. I do think that that's something that's been said in the media, that people say, we progress so much and we have so many different types of people here. Even before there was this whole thing that was happening with, immigration and the border patrol and various people coming in from all over the world, there was this belief of you have so many different types of people, here. And so it's not just the white place. That's why we have the whole issue with some far right people talking about, oh my gosh, the great replacement. It's the great replacement. All white people are going away. It's the great replacement, right? Because it's just too many blacks. It's too many Negroes. It's too many POCs around here. Can we get the POCs out of here? Right? Again, though, when we're talking about culture, I do feel like Black American is becoming a thing and people don't want to sit there and talk about African American, or they don't want to hold African American the same. It's silly at the end of the day. I think you could use Black American and African American, because there's plenty of Black people that's going to continue to use African American, because it's been cemented within the verbiage that we use as Black people. It's just like there's really... I don't think we're going to fully get away from African American, because too many Black people like to go on to various different types of things and not stick to one. Just stick to one, okay? But it is what it is. Let's move on.
Wanna make love on the move, dancing to my tune. Is it too much? It's not too much. I wanna be involved.
Okay, I'm going to say this. Do not get mad at me. Please, 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 please do not get mad. Do not get mad. The food looks good. The food looks good. It's the American in me. Because every time I see like fufu, I call it mashed potato bread. I'm not saying that it's a slur. Okay, I'm not saying that to be funny. It looks like mashed potato bread. And so I like calling it that because, I don't know, I just like calling certain stuff different names just because I like to act quirky or some bullshit like that. But I know it's fufu, right? And I've seen it. I think it's interesting, right? Right? And they would pick it up with their hands, right? And they put it into that other stuff that they have, but the other stuff is like wet. And something about it, like I can eat... For some reason, I could eat like hot wings. I could eat a messy burger, but I don't eat it often. You know, I could eat messy things. But something about taking some fufu, dipping it into some like already, you know, liquidy, mushy stuff. Like, I'm just kind of like, ugh, like. And there's no napkins. There's no napkins. Get a napkin. Get a towel. Get a towel. Get a napkin. Get something, damn it. Don't rub it on the carpet though, you know, because the carpet looks nice. This, you know, I would prefer a different color, but the carpet looks nice. It's cute though, the little baby hands, and they're just like, you know, the baby's gonna be fine with it, right? You know, this is one thing I can say about this particular type of cultural, you know, staple dish. This particular type of cultural dish is that kids would love to do this shit because they love just putting their hands and eating shit anyway. So, you know, they will eat this up and they'll have a good time. Okay. Oh my gosh. See, this is just like the last one when they're saying that African man will use them. My dear, you better use them for their money too. From a Nigerian woman, spend their money. They're usually quite generous too. So at least, girl, I'm laughing my ass off. Be having a whole wife back home. Is that a thing? Is that a thing with a lot of Africans where they be having like a whole wife back home? Dang, I've been hearing a lot about the African man. Now, I've been seeing the African weddings, especially the Nigerian, specifically the Nigerian weddings. They be cute. They really cute. I really love them. I love the production of it all. But yes, I hear this too much. Like, this is the second to third time I've seen this. Like, what's going on?
Tell me you're Black American and not African without telling me you're Black American and not African. Y'all, why can't I make this sound?
I can't.
So we come over here, y'all assume we have the money because we come from the States, which to a certain degree because the city is less, sure. But you have to think too, like, let's say me, myself, I have busted my tail to save money to be able to come over here. So when you raise the price on me and I'm not some millionaire, you know what I mean? It's very disheartening because I save money to come here. I don't have a lot of money, you know what I mean? So in the States, I think there's a misconception that Black people have the money. As a majority, I mean, there are like, you know, individuals, but as a majority, we have the least money in the States. Come from the States.
A lot of people that are coming saying that's how tourism works. And low key, I think that that is something that is true. Like, that's not just necessarily a Black American thing. Now, you could say, because I've seen other videos of like African Americans going to Africa, and they say I'm being upcharged, but then when I see somebody who was white, they get charged less. That's when it's kind of like, what's going on? It's like when somebody else is visiting with you, and you know you're also a tourist with someone else, and they're not getting charged up like the same way that you're getting charged up. It's like, okay, we're all getting upcharged, and it's like, it's still shitty, but okay, well, it's a tourist thing. But then when you're only upcharging someone who's a Black American, but you're not upcharging somebody who's a white American, or somebody who's, you know, maybe Chinese or whatever the fuck, then it's kind of like, did I do something? Like, what's going on? That's what I've noticed more. It's not necessarily that, oh, I have a problem with you upcharging me because I'm a tourist. I have a problem with you upcharging me only, and then I'm looking at everybody else and they're getting like fair prices. There is this belief as a Black American that you, really just as an American period, that you got money. If you're an American and your ass can go all the way to a different country, they're going to assume like, well, Miss Mamas, you bring your ass all the way over here, you can pay the highest price, right? And especially if you do not know the language. You don't know the language. You know, I've seen different types of videos where there was like Black men speaking Chinese, or Black men speaking different types of languages. And some of the people will be like, oh, this is amazing. They appreciate it. And other people will be pissed the fuck off because they was ready to scam your ass. They was ready to take your money. Okay? They was ready to upcharge you to the 10th degree. They was ready to make you pay bands on bands on bands. But then when you now are aware of the language, when you're aware of the different things they say, it's kind of like, oh shit, like really, like, you know what the fuck is going on.
I know what you guys really want to know. They look exactly like the women in the United States. Like, I mean, exactly. You cannot tell the difference. Like, and when I got there, I told my homeboy, I was like, man, it's a bunch of Americans in here. And I started hearing everybody speak in the native language. I was like, damn, they look just like us. They weren't lying when they said the slaves came from this country. Everybody here looks American. If you're from the United States, or I guess if you're from the UK, they look exactly like we do.
Hey, dear God, I have seen Delulu before, but this one is peak. This is delusional. Look at Chinedu. Chinedu that we used to know in Asaba, they're rolling tires, suddenly gone to America, and has forgotten that we look like, dear Chinedu, you are African. Baba, Tobias, the father that gave birth to your father, yes, he's from Africa. And let me tell you, it boils down to the inferiority complex that people have here. Once you hear accents, or you think that something is foreign, you people, your head has woken up. That's why you that's why you hear that, oh, someone finished their MBA from University of Crow. Immediately, you people just think it's automatically better than you. You don't know if this past the person came out with third class, anything is better than you. That's why they will do IJGB party in Lagos here. I just got back party, they will say you people are not invited inside your own Lagos, or you'll be working in a car Atlantic there. They will say, oh, please, only expatriates are allowed to work here. Imagine inside our own country. It's because God needs to open you people's eyes from this delusion. My God, set my people free.
I know what you guys.
Somebody said, what were you writing? LOL. I mean, there's been people that said that Africans and Black people look differently. That man that I was talking about that I worked at the diner with, he was like, we have different phenotypes. They have different phenotypes in Africa. It reminds me of when I saw a tweet from an African who he was like, look at all these African beauties. And it was like a picture at a game at a HBCU. It's like, I mean, to me, I don't even know why Black Americans and Africans are even shocked that we look similar to each other when we Black. I especially don't know why Black Americans are shocked that a good amount of Africans look like Black people. I've seen so many different types of Africans from so many different parts of Africa who look similar to my cousins, to my aunties, my uncles, to, you know, my own sisters, my own mom, my own dad. Like, I'd be like, dang, you could like literally be related to us. Maybe you are. Like, it's not shocking to me. So I don't even understand why this is even like a debate. But I mean, it is what it is.
So we already know that Africans and African Americans don't get along. The hate is very evident when you hop online. But that's the thing. when you hop online. I don't see this shit in person at all. Okay, I'm lying a little bit. There will always be somebody that's mean, but that's not what I'm talking about. My point is that the hate is strong online, but there's lots of love in person. As an African, I love African Americans. I have so many African American friends. We get along just fine. And I bet you if I asked any of them what they think of Africans, they won't have anything bad to say. We can talk about the bullying that Africans endured by African Americans in school, but that's not what I want to talk about. Just because I'm not in school anymore and I don't get bullied for being African anymore. I have learned to let that go because I decided to love myself. And I've been able to see that a lot of the African Americans that bullied me are now grown or the same age as me, and they don't think like that anymore. If you're Black and you go to any part of Africa, I bet you will be loved and welcomed. So just remember that just because there's hate and division online, it doesn't mean that it's the same thing in person. So we already know.
I think it kind of reminds me of that one video. I forgot which one it was, but they were just like, oh my gosh, I was so surprised. It was the first video I ever made about the diaspora situation with this Bahamian girl, and she had somebody from the UK. And towards the end of the video, she was like, oh my God, I'm so surprised. Like, people, I'm not saying her accent in the right way, I'm just doing it, a very American version, but oh my gosh, people were going around and they were hating, and I've never seen so many white people be so, honest about their racism, right? She was so shocked that so many white people were very out loud with their racism. It was just this big thing, like, oh my gosh, we've never seen this before. And it's because, obviously things have progressed. Obviously people, we've been integrated. Obviously, Martin Luther King had his dream, and even though he kind of touched upon how that dream kind of turned into a nightmare, but the dream came true. We're here. We coexist. We're good. How's it going? Period. Right? I think that some people, because again, she's from the UK, even though she experienced racism, she should know what racism is, especially in the fucking UK with a whole bunch of Europeans. But, there is this belief that because they're not saying it the same way that they did back in the day, it's not as habitual, not as in your face outside in person, that it does not exist, where they just keep it quiet. Everything that is being revealed online is how you feel, you might mostly feel in person. Now, yes, it could be an over dramatization of those aspects of how you feel. It may be, a hyperbole of those certain things that you feel. You may not feel it that bad when you're talking about different people in different communities. However, you felt them, right? When you see a whole bunch of things where a white influencer gets exposed for saying some racist shit, they felt that shit, right? Now, yeah, okay, I was young, I was dumb, fine. But then, am I going to think that at 20-something, 30-something, that they weren't aware, or that they let go of all of those resentments or all of those particular types of beliefs of different types of races of people? No. Now, I'm going to think that they're smart enough not to say that shit out loud, because they know that there will be, different types of consequences to that if you're outwardly being somebody who is ignorant towards a group of people. There's consequences in many different ways for different types of groups that you talk about, right? But I'm not going to think to myself, oh, this person is not racist anymore. But I understand what she's saying. Like, obviously, it's not going to be every single person that you go talk to is going to have an issue. But I do feel like there is a lack of trust. And there's this feeling of, well, if you're saying shit online, a part of that is truthful. Part of those things that are being said by the communities, part of those things that are being said by these people are truthful. A part of that is something that's how they actually feel. So they may smile in your face. We may actually be good to each other. We may actually, I may have a couple of African people I'm cool with. We talking to each other. We cool with each other. Everybody's good with each other, right? But then that don't mean that you're not going to talk shit behind somebody's back. That don't mean that you're not going to go talk to somebody else who's also African and they're going to sit there and be kiki and talk about, I can't stand these Black Americans. They need to take their stupid asses away from me because I'm tired of that. That doesn't mean, that's not something that just goes away, because it's called being on code. It's called, playing your part, doing what you need to do, keeping the peace. But parts of how people are being presented online and parts of the negativity that you see on social spaces online, parts of that shit is how they actually feel. Let's keep it a buck.
Yeah, I do feel like Africans do get made fun of a lot. Like
Yeah.
in school
Yeah,
growing up,
definitely.
I got made fun of a lot. Like I got bullied for being African.
That can also create the animosity.
Yeah. The animosity, that's definitely
the
word.
bullying, like your name and stuff.
I'm not gonna lie, we didn't know no better. We joke on each other. It's a part of our culture to make fun of stuff that may be serious, but to make the light out of it.
Because that's part of our culture. And Africans don't necessarily know that because obviously they have their own culture. So they looking at it like, they looking at it as, oh, that's super disrespectful. When we looking at it like, yo, it's just a joke. It's really not that deep. Like,
I mean, so this is the biggest part that this is coming from the African side. And it says, I've yet to see one AA come out and take accountability about bullying Africans. Instead, they always come with, oh, everybody gets bullied. Get over it. How? You know, yeah, and this is also something, you notice how Africans always remember what Black Americans teach them, but never remember what white people do to them. And in anywhere you go on earth, the kids of the culture will make fun of you. Every race does. Yeah, I feel so conflicted about this because I have heard a lot of Africans say that they got bullied for being African, but as somebody who is queer, as somebody who is a Black man, as somebody who was a gentle giant, sensitive, that wasn't necessarily what you would consider the stereotypical aspect of what it means to be a Black man. I was very flamboyant, feminine at times, but I did also understand how to code switch and be more masculine presenting and all of those different aspects of life. I feel like a lot of Africans get really bring that up, but I think a lot of Black Americans, there is a lot of roasting culture. They will roast you on anything. You smart, they talk about you. You skinny, they talk about you. You fat, they talk about you. You dark skinned, they talk about you. You light skinned, they talk about you. You got a weird voice, they talk about you. You don't speak up enough, they talk about you. You're weird, they talk about you. You like anime, they talk about. Like, it's no type of thing. If you have a prominent accent, they're gonna talk shit about you. If you don't have a prominent accent, but you like a certain thing, they're gonna talk shit about you. And I could easily say as a Black American, oh, okay, I don't like Black people. I don't fuck with Black people. I can't stand Black people because of the homophobia that I receive from Black people. But I've been privileged enough, being someone who grew up in the suburbs, being somebody who is middle class, where I could have easily been around predominantly white people. I was privileged enough to be around Black people from all walks of life, from the hood to the suburb to the gated community, because I went to Black church. We had cookouts. We had family reunions. We had different types of things that were going on where we went to different stuff that was being hosted in the schools. We talked to different people from other churches who were also predominantly Black. And so I had a mix of various different types of connections with Black people because I had the ability to have good relationships with other types of Black people. I had the ability to have good relationships with other people who didn't just come for me, didn't just embarrass me. From my viewpoint, I understand why a lot of Africans will feel the way that they feel about how they got treated in schools. I can sympathize with a lot of Africans, but on the other side, I'm kind of just like, you didn't find anybody? Like, there was no one there that was like cool with you, that fucked with you. There was just no one. And so because of that, you just said, if I can't stand no Black Americans, it's done. I'm over it. I don't know. Maybe it's the way they perceive it culturally. It's a cultural difference. I'm just like, and someone saying, watching Black Westerners make white excuses for appalling behavior is why we'll never trust you. We ain't never gonna trust each other, are we? I don't think we are. Making jokes about our blackness and facial features is not a Black American thing. See, some of the Americans are lying. I was in schools. I was in the schools where the girlies was making fun of your big lips, making fun of your dark skin, turn the lights off, where did so-and-so go? They was making fun of the way that you look. They said you look like a monkey. They said you look like a gorilla. Plenty of women and girls have talked about the colorism that they face from other Black people in America. And so I don't like the Americans going around trying to trivialize that particular type of thing, because no, colorism and all these other different things are very much a real thing, especially growing up in schools. Let's not play dumb. All right.
Funny how Black Americans shouting about racism and Black Lives Matter. Funny how black Americans shouting about racism and black lives.
Yeah, someone say it goes both ways though, because some Africans from Africa don't see them as a part of us. That's what I'm saying. This is that's what I'm saying. Like, it's very crazy to me because I can agree with the fact that Africans came to America and they got mistreated by black Americans. I can really acknowledge that because that's a real thing. But it's really crazy to me how Africans are really trying to be like, it's this thing that's happening where they're saying, well, black Americans really don't want to be African no more. You said we weren't African. And then they say, no, we didn't say that. We were just saying that you weren't authentically African. So, okay, let me do a recap. So we're African, but we're not authentically African because we've been disconnected. I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, been disconnected from the cultures of Africa. So we're really American, but the way we identify ourselves is African American. So technically we are African because we came from Africa, but we're not really African because we're American because we are, like, it's not. So when black people are saying, you know what, fuck it, we black American, we're not African no more. Africans are saying, oh, you're just like white people. You're trying to say that you're, but you said we wasn't really African like that. If we took an ancestry test and we said, okay, we want to y'all, every black American had the ability to take an ancestry test, and we started to sit there and see the calculations of where we came from, and we would say, oh yeah, I'm black American, oh yeah, I'm we're not black, I'm Nigerian, I'm Kenyan, I'm whatever the fuck, and we started wearing the dress, we started eating the food, we started, doing that. A lot of Africans, I kid you not, a lot of Africans would be like, girl, no the fuck you were not. And that's not even just an online thing. They would be like, girl, no, go sit down. They would do that. Now, there'll be some, they'll be like, yes, come on, yes. But a lot of them will be like, no, I could sense the American on you. I could feel the American on you. So it's very weird that now, after so many times of a good amount of black Americans trying to identify with African American, considering they saying African American, trying to identify with African people, trying to be ingrained in that culture, they kind of moved the goalpost of what is authentically African and what is not. What is, the way to introduce yourself to the culture, the way to get into that, and what is a way to, kind of just sit back because it's not really your culture. It's like what's going on? What one thing becomes a mockery, another thing becomes like, oh wow, how dare you not want to be a part of the culture? It's like you said, I wasn't African. I don't know the ins and outs, which how would I, being an American, I do not know the ins and outs of your culture. You didn't really present it in a way that you want me to know. You didn't present it in a way that you want the black people in America to come and understand that, to try to figure that out. And so at the end of the day, when so many black Americans are like, okay, well, I don't want to sit there and deal with, and then they're saying, true, they only claim it when it benefits them. I don't believe any black American has claimed being African when it benefits them. Now, when we're talking about history, yes. When we're talking about history, yes, we're going to talk about being African, because that plays a part in the history of what it means to be a black American. Yes. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about culturally, no, we can't sit there and say that we're African. We can't identify ourselves with being African because, again, that's not really what we identify as culturally, socially in the United States of America. We have claimed that we were African numerous times, and a bunch of Africans said no. And they will still say, well, pull it up. Give us the receipts. It's like the receipts are right in front of you. Look in the mirror. You are the receipt. I don't understand why.
I think genuinely people don't understand what African Americans are or the history of African Americans at all. This person is saying, girl, we all know their origins are African. What baffles me is that they neither know nor claim the culture country they're from, unlike British immigrants from Africa. They don't hesitate in saying, the key word here, British immigrants. Immigrants, meaning they chose to go to the UK. It was a choice. African Americans are not immigrants in the United States, not in that way. None of us chose to be in this land at all. Our ancestors were forcibly enslaved, subjugated, dragged across the Atlantic, and brought to the Americas. And then once they got here, they were separated from anyone that spoke the same language as them, anybody from the same ethnic group as them, because they wanted to break us down and dehumanize us. They made it so that we could literally have no idea which ethnic group we came from. Like, they did this on purpose because they didn't see us as human. So when you sit there and act like, well, I don't know, well, they don't claim pride in it, they didn't allow us to. This was stripped away from us, and this is the legacy 400 years later. This is what we have now. We created a whole new culture in the United States, and that's what being an African American is. Rebuilding after all of that. So now, even after this, and you're still going to try to say, well, I don't understand why you don't claim a specific place. Then, okay. I think genuinely people don't understand what African...
And you would see clips where somebody would ask Africans, they'd be like, where you from? Oh, I'm from Alabama or something. Okay, where your parents from? America, Alabama. No, where are you from? And it's like, and it's crazy to me because Africans will say, we know your culture, you don't know ours. And everybody outside, I realize we don't know each other's culture. I'm putting myself in. We don't know each other's culture like that for real. We don't know each other's culture like that for real. Because there's so many people outside of America just talking about, they think because they're in the messiness of American politics, they genuinely know the ins and outs of every single culture in America. They truly do not know shit about shit when it comes to American culture. They don't know shit. They think we all eat the same food, we all act the same, we all walk the same, we all move the same. They think we're all just this one... humongous, I can't say it, but y'all know what the fuck I'm talking about. They think we're just this one singular, unified thing. I know it says United States of America, but there's so many different things going on in one state alone, let alone all fucking 50. So it's crazy to me. And if for some reason there's always a black British person, and when I really think about it, when we're sitting there talking about the issues between Africans and African Americans, I'm gonna be real about it. I don't really be thinking about the UK. The UK girlies be coming in time and time again. I would blink and it would be somebody from Uganda, somebody from Nigeria, somebody from Kenya, somebody from, somebody from the islands, right? It's like, okay, we get it, round one fight, right? But when it's somebody from the UK, I'm just like, why are you in it? Why are you in it? Why are you in it? Why are you putting yourself in a position where we have to listen to you? Nobody has an issue with you. We're not talking to you. We're not having a moment to speak to you right now, UK girlie. You got to deal with the originators of, fucking white supremacy anyway, because it was fucking Europeans. You have to deal with the originators, so you deal with that. But stop putting yourself in our business talking about some, oh yeah, you know what it's like. Because, yeah, Immigrants, you came to the UK. You came. You're a little bit different from the girlies in Africa. You came, yes, you came. Yes, we know you came from, but they stayed there. They've been there. They got roots there. You got roots there, but you're going around talking shit about black Americans. Like it's honestly silly to me. Black Americans have been saying this time and time again. We know your culture. We know what you've been going through. We know everything about you. Do you? Okay, Jim Crow. I mean, it's like when you say a word so many different times. From the beginning, from the first time you said that word to now after how many times you said it, it don't even sound like the same word no more. Do you guys really understand the intricacies of what really took place?
When we say the term African American, which is a term that was popularized in 1988 by Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson and the Boule and the Congressional Black Caucus had a press conference at a hotel in Chicago at the behest of the white Democratic Party. And they said, black Americans now want to be labeled African Americans because we want to be grounded in a motherland. And they started to promote the term African American. They did this not to give us a cultural relevance, because we already had a cultural relevance here. This is our culture. What they wanted to do was make us comparable to immigrants.
We led an unjust government that was working on terrorism, and I am an immigrant. I'm the first generation. We fled the South.
So an African American is no different from a Hispanic American, which is no different from an Arab American, which is no different from a Chinese American. So the narrative becomes, all of you minority groups contributed to the greatness of America.
Right.
So when we give something to black people, let's give it to all minorities because you're all equal. That was a trick bag. And they do that right now. Whenever we start talking about reparations, which we deserve, well, all people suffered. All people experience racism.
Right.
So we have to stop that narrative, and this is why the foundation.
Child, this reminds me of what Kamala Harris said.
About that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that.
Wrong with right now, because we're claiming our specific.
I mean, yeah. And when I found out that her father was actually Jamaican American and her mother's Indian, love that mixed, bag. But yeah, she doesn't understand the cultural specifically of black people in America, or better yet, black Americans, because that's, how they're going to justify it. Well, that's a very small pocket of the population in America, so we're not going to really give them what they need. We're not going to give them anything that they need. I'm like, okay, Miss Mamas, okay.
An African American guy approached me yesterday at the gym, and I told him that I don't date African Americans. And he quickly jumped the gun and was like, oh, is it because we don't have a culture? That's what y'all think? I said, sir, this does not have nothing to do with you, but with me. I said, sir, I don't speak English. I don't know how to speak English. He was like, well, you're well spoken to me. No, give about 2 hours of being with me. You'll be asking yourself, what are you saying? Every day you'll be like, come again, come again. I don't want to be coming again every time. I cannot even joke with you. You'll be asking me. You say, baby, that's not how you said that. Don't correct me. I don't want. After pretending to speak in medical terminology at work, I can only pronounce those medical words. You see me stressing those medical words to say it. You'll feel sorry for myself. I have to be stressing it. Hi, hapo. No, it's okay. My boss often said, if you want to catch Miriam, catch her from 8:30 to 10:30. By that time, she speaks good English. After that, whatever you get, you on your own. And guys, after 2 hours, I'm tired. It's a full-time job. Sometimes, I'm speaking good English at work. I'll be speaking in a tone voice. My voice is sweet. Everything is calm. And then what they're hearing is a real African lady speaking breaking English. So I can only do 2 hours in a day.
I'm done. I live. And I think that's the whole thread. I'm all the way done. I love this. This was a moment. I had to go to an interview. It's literally just at a fast food job. Yeah, and I'm gonna be doing some more reactions with the diaspora, and then I've been dibbling and dabbling in some religion and stuff like that. But this was so fun. I really loved it.
My intro, bitch.
All right. Thank you for joining me. I gotta go to Raising Cane's.